Love room guest and mother. I'm a 6-year-old girl this year. My name is Park Ok-hee. There are only my mother and 2 family members who are the prettiest in the world. Oh, I'm in trouble. I almost left out my uncle, so my uncle who goes to middle school now doesn't have much time at home except for when he eats. Sometimes I can't even see my uncle's nose even if I go for a week. Blinking is unusual. My mother is literally the most beautiful looking mother in the world, and she is 24 years old this year, and a widow. I don't know what a widow is, but anyway, people in the neighborhood call me a widow, so they know my mother is a widow. Everyone else has a father, but I'm the only one without a father. I guess he's a widow because he doesn't have a father. According to my maternal grandmother, my father died a month before I came out of the world. It's been a year since I married my mother. My father's hometown is far away, but he happened to come to this village's school as a teacher, so even after marriage, my mother didn't go to her marriage and bought a house here. She suddenly went in less than a year after living here. Even before I came out into the world, my father died, so I didn't even see his face. No matter how much I think about it, I don't think of my father. I've seen the picture of my father once or twice. He has a really great face. If my father was alive, he would be the best father in the world. It's very resentful not to see such a father. It's been a while since I saw that picture. But in the past, he always left it on his mother's desk, and whenever his maternal grandmother came, he always told me to remove it, but now he disappeared. One day, while my mother was away, she secretly took something out of her intestines and saw me hiding it in her intestines as soon as I came in, and I thought it was probably a picture of my father. Before my father passed away, he left us something to eat and live on. Last summer, no, it's almost autumn. One day I picked my mother and went to a small mountain here, where I ate the night, and then went to the house and ate chicken soup under it. I don't eat or starve in the harvest. No money for side dishes and snacks, so my mother takes care of other people's sewing. You make money by sewing, buy herrings, buy eggs, buy candy for me? And my family really is only 2 of me and my mother, and because the room where my father was in is empty, the room is also useful and my mother's heart is cold, so my uncle is in the room. This spring, I was so happy to send me to kindergarten that I was proud of my children, and then came home, so my uncle was sitting in the love room with a stranger, and winning. My uncle will look at me and say, "Oh, come here and say hello to this man." I am so ashamed that the stranger is that is so sweet. Is it your niece? So my uncle is my sister's daughter, and the only daughter of the primary army. Oh, come here, Uggy. Yes. The eyes are like my father, a strange guest says. Now, Uggy, why is that big girl? Come on, say hello to this guy. Your father's old friend, but you will be in love from today. I have to be close to you. I suddenly enjoyed hearing that this strange guest was in the love room. So I went to see him and he bowed and ran into the courtyard. The stranger and his uncle laughed out loud. I put my mother in the room and said, "Mom, my uncle in the room has picked up a uncle, and he is now in the room." Yes, and she's already said it in a small way, as if she knew it. So I asked, "When are you here?" "From today." "Good." And when I hit my hand, my mother grabbed my hand. "Is it repairing?" "Where's your little uncle going?" "My uncle is in the love room, too." "Are there 2 of us?" "You 2 are in one room." Jangbiman is closed, and uncle is in the lower room, and uncle is in the upper room. I didn't know what kind of person he was, but he always thanked me from the first day, and I really like him. Listening to what adults say, the old man is a friend of my late father. When he was young, she went somewhere far away to study, and came back these days, and she came to my Dongri school as a teacher. In addition, my uncle is also a companion, and there is not much clean sewage in this Dongri, so he came with our love. In addition, if we get paid for the meal from him, we will also have a little support team. He has as many picture books as he can. When I go out to the love room, the man sits me on his lap and shows me a picture book. And sometimes they give me snacks. One day, I had lunch and soon went out to love, so my uncle only had lunch then. Yeah, I'm sitting still and watching you grab lunch. Aki, what's your favorite side dish? You'll ask. Yeah, I said I liked boiled eggs, and he just picked up a boiled egg on the table and told me to eat it. I peeled off the egg and ate it. What side dishes do you like the most? When I asked, he smiled for a long time. I'll be a boiled egg, too. I clapped my hands because I like it, and it's the same as me. Then I stood up thinking that I should let my mother know, holding on tight. He said, "Don't do that." Nevertheless, I'm a hot-tempered person who always stays the same once I've made up my mind. So as I ran into the courtyard, I screamed, "Mom, Mom, love, and Dad like me like eggs. Don't make any noise," and my mother sheds her eyes. But it became very good for me that Uncle Sarong likes eggs. Because after that, my mother bought a lot of eggs. When my old father-in-law comes, I'll boil them all at once, put them in the old man's table, and give them to him one by one. Not only that, but when I go out to play, he sometimes takes 1 or 2 eggs out of the desk drawer and gives them to me to eat. Yeah, after that, I ate a lot of sweet persimmons. I liked the old man very much. There were times when the youngest uncle sometimes didn't pay. I guess he doesn't like it. No, more than that, it must be because my uncle hates it because he always calls my uncle's heart. Once, I even heard my mother and uncle arguing. My mom. "Hey, don't go out again, and if the teacher comes in, you have to pay for it." After saying that, when my uncle frowns, he says, "For God's sake, on days when I have some business to do, I don't come in and be late when I eat. You must be grumpy." So my mother said, "So what can I do? You're the only one who can enter and exit love. Your sister is a bit rude. Are you in this world these days?" My mother suddenly looked up and just looked at her uncle without answering. So my uncle went out with a smile and love. I went to kindergarten and learned how to sing and dance. The kindergarten female teacher is very good at playing music. But the money in our kindergarten is very different from the music in our chapel, but the sound of not being small is very good. But I suddenly remembered that there was something that looked just like a kindergarten music in the neighborhood of my house. That day, I dragged my mother's luggage to Utkan on my way home. "Mom, isn't this a musical instrument?" When I asked, my mother smiled brightly. "That's right. How did you know that? The music in our kindergarten is exactly like this." "Then, do you know how to play the music?" I asked again. "That's because I've never seen my mother sitting in front of this musical instrument." My mother doesn't answer anything. "Mom, try writing the music." When I urged her to do it, her face became a little blurry. "Your father bought me the Pungjiam. After your father's death, I haven't opened the lid twice until now." Looking at my mother's face saying this, it seems like she's going to burst into tears again, so I'm done. I dragged her downstairs while singing, "Mom, give me candy." It's already been several nights since I came to the Sarambang. My mother sometimes scolds me for not being able to use it if I go and annoy her, but really, I didn't bother her at all. Rather, the old man bothered me. Aki's eyes resemble her father. The fine nose probably resembles my mother. Nose, mouth. Yes. Is that so? Aren't you drawing? Mothers are as beautiful as Aki. There was a time when I asked this many things. So I asked my mom when she came in, and she was quiet. Yeah, I was like, how much should we go in to see? I pulled his sleeve, and he jumped up and said, no, 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 I'm busy right now. I caught myself while doing. But it really didn't seem to be that busy. So I didn't even tell him to go, but he just sat on me, stroked me on the head, and slapped me on the cheek. Who's going to do the jagori? Do you sleep with your mom at night? I kept asking for useless words. However, for some reason, even the uncle who used to adore me so much suddenly changes his attitude when his uncle comes into the lower horse. He doesn't ask me anything, he doesn't hug me tightly, he sits gently and shows me picture books. Maybe the uncle is scared of my uncle. Anyway, my mother sometimes locked me up in the room after dinner and stopped me from leaving. But a little later, when my mother was distracted by sewing, she secretly woke up and came out. At that time, my mother listens to the sound of me opening the door and follows me closely. But at times like that, my mother didn't write, come here and brush your hair. After doing draw and braid your hair again. Doesn't the old man look ugly when you braid your hair beautifully? Sometimes, he braided his hair. What's this? There were times when they gave me a new jagori while doing. It was a Saturday afternoon. The uncle asked me to go up to the hill behind me. I said let's go because I liked it so much. I went in and got permission from my mom. He says, that's true. I jumped in and asked my mother for permission. My mother washed my face again, gave birth to my hair again, and then hugged me very much and let me go. Don't stay too long, okay? After my mother shouted loudly. I think Mr. Sarong heard that, too. I went up to the back hill and looked down at the station for a long time, but the train didn't pass. I pulled out grass leaves and went to pinch my sweaty uncle's leg. After a long time, I came down holding my wrist with edge, and I met my kindergarten colleagues. Aki went somewhere with her dad. Yes, said a companion who said. It was a child who didn't know my father died. I've lost track of work. At that time, I don't know how much I wished this uncle was really my father and thought, I really want to be your dad just once. I wanted to sing it like that. It was so much fun to walk past the alley with an old man that day. I came all the way to the gate and I'm jealous that the uncle is my dad. I suddenly said it. Then he said, the old man's soul was washed like a red radish and shook me very much. I couldn't say such a thing, but my voice trembled a lot. I ran inside without talking because the uncle looked very angry. My mom said, you went this far. He hugged me and asked me, but I couldn't answer and cried. My mother was surprised. Aki, what's wrong? I kept asking, huh? But I couldn't answer anything and just cried. The next day is Sunday. So I went to the chapel with my mother, and went out to love for a while she changed her smile. Is the man still into sexes? I looked into the room quietly. And the man sitting at his desk, and writing something, looked out, and smiled. When I saw that smile, I was relieved. Are you sure your last name has been released now? He looked at me and said, where are you going today? I asked, go to the chapel with my mother to the chapel. Let's go to the chapel in front of the house. In the time of in front of you? I heard my mother's voice, oh, my God. And I could not tell what was really the reason for the fortress. I went to the chapel and prayed, and suddenly I thought, did not you come to the chapel? I opened my eyes and looked up at the man. And then you'll be sitting right there, and you're an adult, but you don't close your eyes and pray, you open your eyes like our children, and look around. I recognized him quickly, but he wouldn't recognize me, and he wouldn't laugh at me, but he wouldn't laugh. I waved. So he bowed his head quickly. And then she realized I was waving and she grabbed me with both hands and pulled me in. I put my mouth to her ear, and there you are. She whispers, and she is sore, covering my mouth with her hand, holding me in her hand, and then sitting in front of her, and pressing her head with her hand. I see that your mother is red again like a red bean curd. The service was very interesting that day. Until the end of the while or worship, my mother sat up with an angry face toward the pulpit. And she did not look down at me occasionally, and laugh at me, in the previous shape. And I looked at him to see him, and I never looked at him, and I was angry. I wanted to stop crying and cry. But not far away. I was very forced to cry because my kindergarten teacher was sitting there. My uncle walked me to the kindergarten for the first few days, after I entered kindergarten, but after several nights, I went to bed alone. But always when I came back from kindergarten, my mother, my house had a gate of love, and modern doors, so my mother always went to this side gate. When I walked in, I ran into the house with my arms. But one day, somehow, she won't be seen in the gates. No matter how angry she is. I thought, but I came back and it was very bad that I left the house without waiting in the doorway. So I thought, I should tease my mom today. I was thinking but outside the gate, oh man, is one here already? I can hear my mother's voice saying. At that moment, I quickly took off my god, and ran into the master bedroom, opened the closet door, and went into it and hid. Akhi, you didn't come to me? My mother's voice just came out of the yard. You're not here. He seemed to go outside while doing. I laughed alone because it was fun. After a long time, I was scolded all over the house. I could hear my mother's voice, my grandmother's voice, and my uncle's voice. I didn't leave because I was home all day long, but when I came to Pahagu of Akhi kindergarten, there was no snack to feed. So I went to my mother's house for a while, but I had stool. It is the mother's voice that does. The kindergarten said it left 20 minutes ago. But in the middle of the circle. It's my grandmother's voice. Anyway, I'll go out and turn around. Where did the plaintiffs go? It's uncle's voice that does. It was not long before I heard my mother's cry thin. My maternal grandmother seemed to be muttering something. I thought I'd stop now and go out, but I was just lying in the closet because I thought of getting back at the chapel last week. It was stuffy and hot in the closet. Soon after, I fell asleep in the middle of the sight. How long did I sleep? When I woke up, I forgot that I came into the closet earlier and was lying down in a strange place. It's dark, narrow, hot. I suddenly thought of something scary, and started crying. Then suddenly, I heard my mother's outer voice near somewhere. And the closet door opened, and my mother hit me on the buttocks in return. I cried more and more out loud. At that time, my mother hugged me, and my mother cried along. Akhi. Yes, it's okay now. Mom, aren't you here? Don't cry, Akhi. My mom only has one Akhi. I live with only one wish for Akhi. Akhi, don't cry. Huh? Don't cry. My mother kept crying, but my mother kept crying. My grandmother said, did you hear the original goblin? Why are you hiding in the closet? He sat out and his uncle went out, saying, oh, my God, Mayuta. When I came home the next day after digging kindergarten, I suddenly felt ashamed to go home yesterday because I thought I had been hiding in the closet yesterday and made my mother cry so hard. I hope you'll be happy for her today. What would I be happy to bring for you? I thought. Then I thought of a vase on your desk in kindergarten, and there was a beautiful red flower in it, that I did not know my name. The flower was not a forsythia, nor azalea. I know those flowers well and I have already bloomed them, and then I have lost them. I thought about them. I know my mother loves them. So I thought that my mother would be very happy to bring the flower. So I went back into the kindergarten room.